In this video we're going to take a look at using timers. Now timers, as you can probably guess, time stuff. In the final game we don't actually, well, I didn't use them for anything specific, but it's useful just so you know that they exist. So what we'll do, if we look at the game, when we start and the game tweens in, it's already sort of playing. So what we can do is make a timer there that delays the start of the game, and one that delays the end of it, so we can actually see ourselves blow up before we go to the game over screen. We might do something different, I don't know, maybe put pro tips on here that change every 10 seconds or so. So let's have a look where to start. We'll go to the level. So we'll use timers in our level. So we're going to have to import them. If I can remember the library, I think it's flash.utils.timer. Yeah, flash.utils.timer. And we'll import import flash.events.timer event, so we can respond to these timers doing something specific. We'll make a variable to store our timer in, so this can be private var timer of type timer. And let's have a look then. So in the level then, if we in the constructor, we'll set up this timer to count maybe 3 seconds before the game really begins. So we won't start spawning any ships before that 3 seconds is up. So here in the constructor, we'll set up a timer to count 3 seconds. So we'll do timer equals new timer, open brackets, and we get this information. So there's a delay and a repeat count. The delay is the number in milliseconds that you want to wait. So in this case we want to wait 3000 milliseconds. The repeat count is how often or how many times you want this timer to loop, to repeat itself. If you put 0 in there, this timer will continuously repeat forever, which is quite dangerous. You don't want lots of timers ticking, they'll start being memory hogs. So I'm just going to repeat once. We're just going to count down once and start the game properly. So 3000 ms equals 3 seconds. Repeat once. Below that we'll add an event listener to the timer. Listener to the timer. So we'll do timer.add event listener. The type we want here is timer complete. Timer complete is when the timer is totally done all its repetitions. So say that number was actually 10. If we wanted it to repeat 10 times, this timer complete would not activate until all 10 repeats had happened. If you want to react to the individual countdown, you use timer. So if we use timer instead of timer complete, and that was 10, the function would trigger 10 times. We just want the final result. So I'm going to use timer complete, and we'll have a function called begin spawn. Begin spawning. Finally, we want to start the timer. Timer.start. And that should be firing. Just notice that I've used protected in certain places and private in others, so I'm going to, in the level class at least, we don't want anything private because we might make use of it as an extension class, as a parent class to other stuff. So anywhere I've got private, I'm just going to quickly paste protected over it. Only inside the level class for future reference. Get back to our timer, sorry. Make the function that starts the spawning. So we'll have a protected function called begin spawning, responding to a timer event, so I'm going to use T. And here we'll just have a flag. We'll put spawning equals true. which means we're going to need a variable, set the spawning variable to true. Try. So up here we'll have protected var spawning, and it's going to be a boolean, and in the constructor we'll set it to false. Don't spawn at the start. So we're going to have to edit the spawning function just slightly. So we find the do spawning function. So we'll just put up at the top, fastest way to do it, if we shouldn't be respawning, return. So if not spawning, return. I think that should be okay. So let's save it, test it. Should be 3 seconds before ships start to spawn. And that worked a charm. We quickly died and we're back. Let's just check it once more. Yeah. Just one thing I noticed then that I didn't cover in the last video. If you look at these tweens, you can click them before they're finished. If you watch this, and they'll still yo-yo properly. Watch this if I can catch it. Go. There we go. The animation was still smooth even though I got it early. Just a nice little feature of the yo-yo. What we're going to do in here now is reuse this timer to delay the transition at the end of the game. So I'm going to have to refresh my memory on how that actually happened. Yeah, it's here where we throw this event. So instead of making an event and dispatching it there, I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to reuse the timer to delay the transition to the game over screen. So I'll do timer equals new timer. Again, 3000, only want to repeat once. Timer dot add event listener. Timer dot timer event dot timer. No, I don't want that. Timer event dot timer complete, and we'll transition out, and then timer dot start. So we need a function now called transition out where we paste the code. Transition out function, function, protected function transition out. Again, responding to a timer event, and just paste the code that we had before. Sort the tab in. Save it, test it, cross your fingers. Go to the game, we wait 3 seconds, ships start spawning, and we die, we blow up for 3 seconds, and it tweens out. Perfect. It's almost going too well. So there's 2 instances, well, the same timer, but 2 uses of the same timer to count down once. Let's just extend it a bit. If we go to our document class, and we'll make a pro tip function or something like that. It's not something I've done before, but hey, got to try something. Go to the level, copy the timer imports, go to the document class, paste them in, and we'll make a private variable here, pro tip timer of type timer, and then in the constructor we'll set the pro tip timer looping. So we'll do pro tip timer equals new timer, open brackets. The delay, let's say 5 seconds. It's long enough to read a pro tip if you're a pro. And we want to repeat indefinitely, so we could put 0 or we could just leave it to the default. Pro tip timer dot add event listener, and this time we're going to use the timer, so we want to react every time it pops, and we'll call it new pro tip. And then start the timer. Pro tip timer dot start. Start the proness. Make a function. Private function new pro tip. Responding to a timer event. And for now, let's just, I don't know, trace new tip. Comment the function. Show a new pro tip. Let's save that and test it. So on the menu screen here, we should every 5 seconds, hopefully, get a new tip. Let's wait 5 seconds. New tip. Yeah. Yeah, so that's working. We actually need some tips though, so let's do that, should we? Let's make a variable here. Private var pro tips. We'll make it an array. Oops, doesn't need the brackets. Add some pro tips to the list. So we'll do pro tips equals new array. Pro tips dot push, and then we can just add, did you know you can fire with the mouse? Who knew? That's one tip. Let's copy the line and add a few more. Did you know bullets cause damage? One more, just so we've got a few. Let's have pro tip. Dying is bad. So we've got 3 tips there. Probably not going to help you all that much, but something to work with. So now instead of tracing new tip, we can select a tip. So we'll say var tip string sting string. Losing my mind. Tips string. We don't want tips. We just want tip. Equals. Let's say we just want a random number from the array. Pro tips. Square bracket. Math dot. Let's say floor. That reduces a number. So say you've got 0.4, flooring it would just chop the decimal off. Even if you've got 0.9, it won't round up, it'll just chop the decimal off to 0. So we're going to floor a random number. Math.random times protips.length. So it's going to pick a random thing from protips. And we'll trace tip. Save that and test it. We should probably spawn one instantly as well. But pro tip, dying is bad. Wait 5 seconds. There's a danger we'll repeat the same one, but no. We got, did you know bullets cause damage? Go on. Oh, we got the same one again. You could set that up to never repeat the same tip, or to make sure it's picking a different tip. let's have a think. Let's quickly do it. We'll have a placeholder here, var old tip equals, oh we can't, we've not stored a reference to the last one. We need to store the reference to the current tip we're using. So let's up here, we'll have a private var last tip index. That could be an int. And just set it to 0 here. So last tip index equals 0. Set last tip displayed. You could set that to -1, I suppose. That way you're not overlapping onto what could potentially get picked. Because if we start it at 0, the first tip in the array won't get chosen first. So instead of using that, and instead of instantly setting the number there, we'll use a do while. Tip index. So what we'll have here, we'll have var tip index. In fact, let's have a think. No, do a do while loop. So do var tip index equals, paste what we've got. What am I doing here? Don't put it in there. Nothing, no condition for a do. Cut that, paste it there, and then we'll put while tip index doesn't equal, oh sorry, while it equals, what do we put, last tip index. I should really have explained that better. I'll go back through it. I don't even know if I've set it up properly. Probably not. I don't often use do while loops, and it's just staggered my brain there. Let's see what Flash has to say about the matter in a minute. But basically what I'm getting at, I'm saying do this. So this is definitely going to happen once at least. We're making a variable called tip index. We're setting it to a random number between 0 and the length of the protips array. And then we're saying to repeat this while the tip index we just generated is the same as the last tip index. So if it's not the same as the last tip index, it'll exit this do while loop. It'll set the tip to be the tip index we've generated and trace the tip. That's the plan. Fingers crossed. Right, so there should be no chance of getting that same one again. Oh, we'll get the same one every time because I've done something wrong. Yeah. Yeah, because I've asked it if it is equal to it. Let's try it that way. Losing my brain. Oh, we've gone into an infinite loop. I know why. Sorry, I've just crashed everything. But I suppose it's good for you to see an infinite loop. I don't think we've had one yet. I know why it's wrong. I'll fix it as soon as it decides to let me carry on. Hopefully it's not messing with the screen recording. There's a chance it is. Get me out of here. Force quit. Right, so I'm back in. That was an infinite loop, and it's because I was an idiot. So we're going to change that back to equals equals. The thing I forgot to do was update the last tip index to match the one we've generated. So we'll, after we've used it, we'll do last tip index equals tip index. So there's your first infinite loop. Hopefully it didn't mess with the video too much. Let's test it. I should really make it generate one instantly, but hopefully now we won't get the same one again next time. There we go. Give it a few ticks. I should probably speed up the timer, but we should not get the same one 2 times in a row. In fact, let's just speed up the timer, just for the sake of testing it. Let's make it half a second and try that. Every half second, just make sure that we don't get 2 the same in a row. Yeah, it seems to work. Stick that back to 5. And let's just fire that new pro tip instantly. So we'll do new pro tip, and because it needs a timer event, I'm just going to pass a null timer event into it. So we instantly get a pro tip. At the moment though, we're still tracing them, so let's adjust that, should we? Crudest way to do it would be on the timeline to just throw a dynamic text field in here. So we could have dynamic text at the bottom, make it quite small, make it maybe size 12. Center it, let's call it the pro tip. Should be okay, make it multi-line, just in case this pro tip is super long. Go back to the script, and instead of tracing, we'll do the pro tip.text. This is from the first series, again, when we use text fields. The pro tip.text equals tip. So I'm going to say the pro tip.text equals tip. Let's hope it works. Save it and test it. Got an error. Can't access a property or method of a null object reference. I'm guessing that I've not named the dynamic text field right. Was it called the pro tip? Just check. It's called the pro tip. It's dynamic. What else could it be? Save that. Oh, it's because we're making a new pro tip before. Right, we'll get rid of that. We don't have a text field at the point of the constructor, so save that and test it, and it should work now. Just takes 5 seconds before the first tip appears. Did you know you can fire with the mouse? Pro tip, dying is bad. Yeah, so you get the idea. Let's maybe make that text a little bit bigger. Just check that. Five seconds. Yeah, so that's working. My brain's turning into mush tonight, but I think that's given you a fairly clear view of what you can do with timers. So I'm going to wrap it up before my puny brain melts out through my nostrils and I lose the will to carry on with this series. It should be getting finished within the next week, so thanks a lot to those of you who've been watching through. Enjoying 6 hours of me, that's a heroic achievement, well done. See you soon. Hello, after letting my brain recover, I've had to come back and edit this video because I left a bug in the game. Let's just quickly have a look at it. Because we set a timer going that's infinite, and we make it use this text field, when we eventually navigate away from this frame, the text field doesn't exist, but the timer's still trying to use it, so we get this error up here, which I should have seen. Put it down to brain mushness. So we'll just fix that. I think the best way would just be to take this out of the constructor. It's not a good idea because we might have a loading screen and all sorts of stuff before this. I'll keep the last tip index in there, but I'm going to take the timer stuff away. So I'm going to cut that. We'll leave the function there, but we'll go to the timeline, go to the keyframe that handles the menu, so we know that the text field definitely exists on there, and just paste the code back in. Tab it along. And let's see. Right, so we're starting it off there. Before we navigate away from this frame, we want to stop it though. So I've still got this text on my clipboard. I'm going to go into my document class, find the function that gets us away from the menu, which at the moment is start game. There'll be problems later when we have other functions, so jump into the instructions, jump into the key shortcuts and so on. So we should potentially look for a better place. We could do it actually in the pro tip bit and only fire a pro tip out there if we're on the right frame. That's one way to do it. Yeah, I'm happy doing that. Here we could say if current label not equal, or it might even be current label.name. As you can tell by my clock, it's very late, so my brain's slow. I'm going to assume that current label is a string for now. Current label not equal menu. Paste the code back in, but this time we want to undo the timer, so we'll change. We'll just get rid of that. We'll remove the event listener. We'll stop the timer, and we'll return from the function. Just have a quick test of that. Make sure we actually get something. That's okay. Start the game, and hopefully now we won't get errors. Quickly die, go back to the menu, make sure that it reactivates itself okay. No errors so far. Just make sure we get a pro tip. Yes. Not too shabby for a sleepy brain. So there's your little edit to the video. Hopefully now it all works seamlessly. And no doubt I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.